Welcome to the show. You're listening to The Ecosystem, where we talk with the world's most exceptional entrepreneurs, investors, and emerging growth companies who are all making a difference in the world. The purpose is to be educated, spark a thought, and understand how the ecosystem all work together. All of this brought to you by the team at Fund. This is your host, RJ Pajaro. My guest today is JD Weinstein. JD helps startups scale through Oracle's rich enterprise ecosystem, cloud solutions, and global customer network. He previously served as principal of WPP Ventures, the strategic venture capital fund for WPP, the world's largest marketing communications company. He focused on venture investments in tech-enabled companies in MarTech, big data and market intelligence, RetailTech, AdTech, and content. Prior to WPP, JD worked with Capital Factory as a venture associate, where he was responsible for deal sourcing and due diligence for the Capital Factory Accelerator and Venture Fund. Prior to Capital Factory, JD worked with the UT Horizon Fund, the strategic market-driven venture fund for the University of Texas system. JD received his BS in political communications and Spanish from the University of Texas at Austin. Outside of the startup ecosystem, JD is a certified paddleboard yoga instructor and a die-hard Texas Longhorn basketball fan. Welcome to the show, JD. Thanks for coming in today. Would love to know a little bit more about your background. You've got really a heck of a title. You head up the startup ecosystem at Oracle. Currently you're the Oracle for startups in North America. You got a big venture and entrepreneurial background. Would love to know, kind of the path of which you got started, how you've worked your way through the ecosystem, and then where you're at today with Oracle.
Sure. First off, thanks for having me on the show, and it's been really amazing to watch your journey and be a part of some of your conferences and different markets around the country. And so, highly suggest folks check it out if you haven't already. You likely have since you're listening to this podcast. But yeah, and to your point before, we've got a dedicated, really amazing team that makes this operation run at Oracle. And so I'm fortunate to be one of a lean team that makes it run, but happy to dive in just a little bit. My start came from the University of Texas and kind of got addicted to what many refer to as the entrepreneurial bug. And with a friend, as part of student government, decided that, after interviewing a lot of different people on what they're doing in the world, found that entrepreneurs were the most passionate, were the most excited to wake up at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday and go to work, felt really, at home with their mission, what they're doing in life. And whether that be an entrepreneur and starting your own company or leading a new division or creating something in a company, that was the direction that I decided I wanted to go. So we created something called the Longhorn Entrepreneurship Agency at the University of Texas. And then in parallel, and goal of that organization was to bring all the different entrepreneurial resources under one umbrella at UT. And also was fortunate enough to take a class called Longhorn Startup Lab. When this was still kind of new, a couple accelerator programs had just kicked off, Y Combinator and Techstars, and one locally in Austin called Capital Factory. And so Josh Baer and Dr. Bob Metcalf and Ben Dyer were the folks that taught that class, and where you actually build a company in the setting of a class. That's more regular now, I think, and folks realize how valuable that is. But back then, it wasn't. It was pretty new. So kind of got the bug there, started out my journey and career with the University of Texas Venture Fund. Two favorite things molded together, and so took advice of folks that said, hey, go find something you love to do and can it be sustainable? And so that was being burnt orange blooded and tapping into the startup and venture scene. So the UT Horizon Fund, a venture fund that was really focused on commercializing University of Texas intellectual property and converting it into companies. That was backed by your taxpayer dollars, people of Texas, and still runs today. A lot of medical devices, pharmaceuticals, materials. Then got my jump over to Capital Factory, went back to that professor, Josh Baer, that runs that system and helped build out a lot of our fund and accelerator program there. Most recently was with WPP, a largest advertising conglomerate, helping run their venture capital operation in early stage investing in media companies, ad companies, things like that. And now I work with Oracle. And the goal of our program is to help empower entrepreneurs to scale their businesses through the Oracle network with our technology and subject matter experts and customers, most importantly.
Love it. So going back to two things, UT Austin and then also Capital Factory. So UT Austin, I think it consistently gets ranked one of the highest entrepreneurial schools in the country. So they obviously supported this mission, supported the fund to get you started. And what was your experience like there? I'm always interested because, when I did my undergrad, it's like these entrepreneurship programs didn't exist, right? Now they're everywhere.
Yeah, it is amazing, and one could say quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think the amount of resources and different places and student organizations and clubs having to do with it spans well over 200 across the campus.
Yeah.
So from venture capital funds, we've got a for students run by students VC fund that's also investing in student-led ventures called Genesis now on campus. I've got the Herb Kelleher Center for Entrepreneurship that spans across the whole entire...
Being the former CEO of Southwest Airlines. It's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we've got, in Texas overall, but graduates of University of Texas have started a lot of major successful companies and fell in love with this mission. And so folks want to back these programs and have interesting things, spin out of UT.
Yeah, again, consistently ranked one of the top schools in entrepreneurship in the country. We've got, just the talent alone that comes out of that school and out of Texas is amazing. So wonderful to hear that. Outsider perspective, but also you had an inside scope at Capital Factory. For the audience, we're sitting here today in Chicago, but Capital Factory is a big deal in Austin. Josh Baer is a big deal. They started obviously in Austin, then expanded to I think Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. What is that like now that you've seen been all over the country with with the ecosystem? What's your take on Capital Factory for the audience?
Yeah. When folks say, I've worked for this company for 3 years or 2 years, but it's startup years, and so they're accelerated. It's really like 17 years. That is absolutely the case at Capital Factory, both with learning amount of input and output that's gone through there, but also now the amount of growth. When I was there, I think in 2013 or so, 2014, it was still really just catching ground and picking up, figuring out what can we do to best serve entrepreneurs in Austin particularly, but also across the state of Texas and doing a lot of things with internationally as well. There, I think, Josh did an amazing job of cultivating this entrepreneurial ecosystem in Austin, and then was fortunate enough to bring President Barack Obama to the stage, who listened and basically judged her startups pitch him. And after this, a whole wide variety of politicians, international business magnates, billionaires, CEO of Apple, of Microsoft started coming in, and that just drew more and more PR and excitement around what was going on there. So there were just a couple of employees when starting out, and now I think, don't quote me directly on this, but they're well over 70. I think that's probably much higher than that, and in all these different cities. So it's been really cool to follow.
Yeah, it's been cool from afar to watch too. From being traveling all the time, but just watching him build that. I think his thing is the Texas Manifesto, right?
Yes, connecting all the Texas. And really quickly to back up for folks that are not totally caught up to speed with Capital Factory, it is, the entrepreneurial center of gravity in Texas, based in Austin, but now in many other cities. And so there are well over, 50 meetups and events and things that happen or around technology and startups at the space every month. There's a venture fund, there's an accelerator program, there's a large co-working space, and so huge community with all these things happening at one place.
So I gotta imagine working with an Oracle would be, like a early stage company's dream, right? How does one go about it?
How do you engage with an Oracle?
Yeah.
As a startup company? Like, there are 2.7 million ways, probably more, that you can get engaged with Oracle across a variety of different teams and LOBs or line of businesses, divisions that are all conquering different agendas. And so, where do you even start? The other kind of high level piece that I would suggest to folks is you want to be like the golden ticket for these people, for this company. You want the spotlight. You want to become the number one case study where you're solving something, or they can point to you and put you up on stage, or write a case study or a PR piece about you, or put you in front of analysts and other folks that are going to interview you, or big customers, where you're going to make them look good. And in turn, you get to share your story, whatever your product might be.
Yeah. Are there any certain types of technologies or really exciting, companies that Oracle is looking to continue to go down that path, or most excited about for the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, because our product set spans across a lot of different verticals. Like, we're an enterprise software company, of course, and we solve a lot, depending on whatever the business challenges that we have with any enterprise around the world. If we don't have a solution for it, which we do, we are going to figure it out and dedicate a team to doing that. Things that we're starting to really pay attention to, I think, are similar to probably what you hear in the world around machine learning, ML and AI, or applied science, to solving really big challenges. But furthermore, I think as the database company, the original database company, what's not being talked as much about, or let's say less buzzwordy, is just the underlying data behind making all of this stuff run. ML and AI does not exist without really accurate data that moves in a fast, kind of cohesive way. And so, really looking at companies that are, capitalizing on this underlying data and organizing it, structuring it to be really insightful, is a no-brainer.
Tell us a little bit, like, from an outsider perspective, looking in, what does that lens look like? What does that mean for me as an early stage founder and or investor? How do I work with you in that role? And then also the progression to, now your new role, Oracle for Startups at North America.
Yeah, sure. So our program, Oracle for Startups, previously named Oracle Startup Ecosystem, that's where this role came from, launched a couple years back, so relatively new program. And Oracle's kind of a last to the gate to have some sort of startup program. How do we partner with startups? How do we empower them? How do we grow with them? The truth is, some of our largest competitors today, they just didn't exist that long ago. So I won't name them on there, but you can guess a bunch of who these folks are, especially in dominating in the cloud space. So we launched the program in India with these different centers, and then moved to Singapore, and then across the world, into France, into Israel, the UK, down to Brazil, and then lastly in the US. And strategically chose Austin for a couple of reasons. We have the second largest campus in the world for Oracle in Austin, Texas, that was recently opened last March. And what we did is we wanted to create a test and pilot program to figure out, how do we actually best serve startups? So we launched this in Austin with the goal of focusing on local companies or folks that wanted to move to Austin, with just a handful, 5 or 6. Ended up taking 6 because there's always that one that you can't say no to. Yeah. And did a big test drive with different verticals. So companies that are in the enterprise identity blockchain space, to the data collaboration space, to the human capital management space, all different sizes. A couple folks that raise no money, to like a data.world that's raised close to $50 million. And so in And these first companies knew they were going to be somewhat of the guinea pigs. Like, we're going to try a whole bunch of things with you and try to really exercise this network and create some amazing use cases and stories. And we're going to see what sticks. So fast forward to today, and most recently, we now are led, our programs are led globally by Jason Williamson, who now kind of understands and took the torch and loved what we're doing in Austin, and opened up. And the question at hand was, there are hundreds and hundreds of companies that applied to this program, and we only took 6. What are we doing with the other 392 companies? We need to open this up. And if they want to work with Oracle, we got to find a way to work with them. And so now our program is a global program. We're open to to startups around the globe, because with digital connectivity, right? Anybody can build a startup anywhere.
Right.
So to finish off, now our program just in the last several months has launched globally. So I look after kind of a business development standpoint for North America, and have colleagues all around the world that do the same, and we're growing at a really rapid pace.
That's awesome. So you mentioned some of the technologies, right? So like, what does all that mean, again, for an early stage founder, right? So like someone who's starting, building, growing a company, how do they engage with Oracle? How do they engage with you? And what does it ultimately, potentially mean for their business?
Yeah, so lots of ways to engage with Oracle, I think, off the bat. And what's interesting, special about our program is we've got an entire baseline of benefits just by signing up that we grant you off the bat. And then so you get a number of cloud credits. You get a 70% discount, steepest discount off of anywhere in the organization off Oracle Cloud for 2 years. And then as you mature and build really interesting use cases with us, we have opportunities to co-sell. We exercise our sales channels to get you in front of enterprise customers. We put you on stage at really big, worthy events, right? Starting with the Oracle Open Worlds, but also third-party events. And we've got really big partners that we do with that. Then we get creative. So what's awesome is we love hearing from startups, hey, I'd love to do X, Y, and Z. Can we make that happen? Our favorite thing to do is, I don't know. Let's go see. Yeah. One resource that I love to mention that a lot of startup programs traditionally just don't have is interviews with analysts. And so, no, not analysts like venture capital analysts that we're kind of used to, but analysts like Gartner and Forrester. If we can get a startup in one of these report, instantly that becomes your sales collateral. So we've done that with a couple of companies, which is really amazing, right? To use our brand and some of our analyst hours to feature some amazing startups that are leveraging Oracle technology. Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because you've got the big bad bear, right, is Amazon, right? And I think it's because like AWS cloud,
they're not
credits,
that bad, though.
yeah, right. But it's like,
they're nice people.
I don't think that they have as much of a focus, and again, just external optics on my side of a focus on the early stage ecosystem. So it sounds like you guys have been doing this a while.
I think what has happened is Amazon, especially AWS, got to the market first, right? First mover, and stumbled upon this amazing business, right? And there's all sorts of articles out there that talk about, right, their beginnings, and because that wasn't their core focus,
right,
from a business model standpoint.
And if I look at the infrastructure, it's like I think of Amazon, I think of ordering my packages, right? Like
ordering packages, yes, consumer, yeah. And most people outside of our tech ecosystem, right, they don't know what AWS is,
right.
Nor do you really need to.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about, right, being a first mover, there's a ton of amazing traction things and benefits that come with it. But Oracle now is building the very last hyperscale cloud. And so we have lots of folks that have worked on building the clouds at our largest competitors, but we're now building the next generation kind of 2.0 built for enterprise, hyper secure, hyper scalable cloud to cater to all of our enterprise customers. So that's really the pitch of, if you want to build an enterprise grade company, and you're looking for a cloud solution to do that, and or, right, you may compete in a lot of different ways with some of our competitors, this becomes a really attractive solution.
Which is highly scalable, assuming, right? It's like, it's
yes,
got to be, because
absolutely,
if you want to go global overnight, you guys can provide that. So
Data centers, yes, around the world.
So, an interesting thing is this whole talk about corporate venture funds. You were involved with the corporate venture fund. I think you ran one, right, at WPP. And there are more and more corporate venture funds popping up. Would love to know your experience as a corporate fund manager, and then also, any insight that you want to share if Oracle's looking to do anything like that in the future. How they engage and help these early stage companies and founders, and what potentially makes them write a check.
Yeah, great. So I had the honor of working with two amazing colleagues, at WPP, one Kenny Tomlin and two Dave Knox. And what kind of spurred up and put us in this position of leading WPP Ventures was Kenny Tomlin ran an advertising agency called Rockfish that he had a very successful acquisition by WPP. And Kenny is a serial entrepreneur through and through, and wanted to figure out a next adventure of, hey, what kind of resources could I have used in this organization to make this thing easier or more scalable? Cut out a whole bunch of the shit that I had to go through. And so that's what we set out to build. And really, the corporate venture fund at WPP, and there are a lot of different models, right, where folks look for pipeline and deal flow for acquisitions for the M&A team. For WPP in general, it was really looking at interesting kind of forward-thinking entrepreneurs and technologies that were going to help boost revenues for all of our ad agencies around the world. And so where other corporate venture funds or CVCs are solely focused on a financial return, and they might only have a sole LP or limited partner, that might be the company that invests in their fund. We were a very strategic fund. Cash off the balance sheet is the terminology, in which we really invested in technologies that were extremely relevant and that we really could make a difference for inside of WPP.
So we go back to this idea of cash off the balance sheet. Again, I just think it's so interesting because they're investing their own money into these companies. So they don't want to lose it, right? Whereas I think it's equally important that you have a fiduciary responsibility as a VC, as a GP, to your LPs and the fund and the things that you invest in, to make sure that they are the right deals, right? But in this case, it's their own cash. So they brought you on to manage that. Was the diligence process for that any different than anything else that you've been involved with, or was it a very similar route to that of a traditional VC fund?
Yeah. So I'd say there are a lot of similarities in the way that we evaluate great companies and great technologies, especially early stage, right? Around the team, but specifically team dynamics. There's got to be a large enough market. What does their traction look like and where is it trending to, right? Looking at different financial metrics. But what's most important is this kind of add-on around how is it strategic to the business? And more importantly, will it be adopted by my business? And so that process, what was really important is bringing in subject matter experts from the different lines of businesses inside of the corporation to actually sign off on it. Say, yeah, we would use this for X, Y, Z, or yes, I support this. Being able to find these different champions before we make the investment is super important. So
we've talked about a lot. The interesting part is this idea of the corporate venture funds. Does Oracle have a corporate venture fund, or is it mostly the partnership side? Or
yeah, so Oracle has actually not had a venture capital fund since the year 2000. Some things happened around that year that some folks will be familiar with on this podcast. But Oracle has made a lot of different acquisitions, right? Over $35 billion of acquisitions. And what's amazing about kind of not having the investment arm is that we have great VC partners, because folks know that.
Which I've seen firsthand with you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, well, I wish it was our team could take credit for it and our leadership at the top, but it becomes a very easy conversation when our larger parent organization buys a lot of companies, one, and number two, we're not taking up any of the rounds and investing in them and displacing other capital partners.
Right.
And so in that way, what do we want to do is we want to figure out amazing case studies that Oracle can go to market with and power with Oracle technology. And by the way, our goal is to scale your companies within Oracle. So it's kind of a slam dunk, easy conversation to be had.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had an entrepreneur in here, a very successful entrepreneur that got some corporate VC backing, and it sounded like it's an interesting story. I think having the corporate VCs involved sometimes. I mean, I don't know what your take is on the corporate venture funds, but sometimes there seems to be a little bit of a misconception as to how they invest, if they invest alongside, syndicate, if they are doing something more so as an investment for a future acquisition. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Look, there's advice step number one, and there's definitely a huge list that I can go through. I'm just going to go through number one in a second, right around, look out for folks that put you with, in a right of first refusal and all sorts of different terms that you need to be really wary of. But what you really should do is go talk to the portfolio companies that a corporate venture fund has invested in and any venture capital fund has invested in.
Brilliant. That's like basically diligence 101, right? It's like it's that easy. Just talk.
You are going to know pretty quickly what the reputation is, what happened or didn't happen, and don't just talk to the success stories. Make sure you talk to companies that struggled and either had a hard time and then eventually succeeded or did not. And what was that experience like?
Yeah. It's I gotta believe it's interesting, right? It's like and then what type of an active role do they keep and or play in the company, or are they just a passive investor, right?
Yeah, and especially if they're going to be a board member and more involved. This is, there's so many different metaphors to dating, right? When you're sitting down and meeting each other for the first time in marriage. And what folks don't understand is like a lot of these business relationships in a venture fund kind of startup entrepreneur relationship will last longer than a marriage.
Yep.
The life cycle of a fund is typically 10 years. And so you're looking at least that. And I don't want to go into the statistics of marriage, just recently engaged. So crossing my fingers for the best here. But a lot of them don't last that long. So you're going, getting into bed rather, or, you're partnering with this person or this family for a very long time, and you're going to go through some really tough shit, and you're going to go through some really joyous times. So make sure that you like this person. Respect them.
Yeah. That's it. I think a lot of people think just raise some money and life will be grand, right? But they have the fiduciary responsibility to their investors and to continue growing the fund. So it is. It's a tough one. But a needed one, right? It's like that's what it takes to continue to scale.
Yeah.
And when you take venture money, you take on new marriages.
That's reality. Right. And, realize that they have an agenda to hit, and they have other key stakeholders with them. And what you really want is transparency. You want transparency and trust. These are the two qualities I'd suggest entrepreneurs look for.
Yeah. Well, hey, JD, I really want to thank you for coming in today, making the trip from Austin. I think you bring a ton of value to the entire ecosystem, both for investors and emerging growth companies. Very excited to hear how Oracle continues to work with everyone of all shapes and sizes and how they can get involved with yourself in the program. So thanks again for being a part of it, and thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me on the show, and thanks everything that you all do at Fund.
You're listening to The Ecosystem, where we talk with the world's most exceptional entrepreneurs, investors, and emerging growth companies who are all making a difference in the world. This is your host, RJ Pahora, with our special guest today, JD Weinstein. For more information, go to fundecosystem.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, folks.